Hey, what's going on? I'm Keith here at Sports Vibes TV, and today we're going to be looking at NBA prospect Davion Mitchell. Now, a few days ago, I dropped a video discussing whether the Knicks would be willing or able to move into the top 10, and a lot of you guys mentioned Davion Mitchell in the comments, so I said it's only right that he be the first draft profile video I make. If you have any suggestions for the Knicks, whether that be trading up or selecting at 19 and 21, let me know your comments down below, and I'll try to knock out as many of the suggestions as I can as we lead up to the NBA draft. But today we're focusing on Davion Mitchell, and I'm going to give you some brief background on Mitchell, as well as some pros and cons with his fit with the Knicks. If you like this video and you want to support the channel, I just ask you to consider, smashing that like button, making sure you're subscribed, and also if you don't have notifications on, make sure you got it turned on. That way you're notified whenever I drop new content. So with that being said, let's look at Davion Mitchell and see exactly what he can provide to our New York Knicks. Davion Mitchell, coming into college, was ranked number 63 in ESPN's top 100 for the class of 2017. He went to Auburn. He did have an offer from Memphis, but he decided to go to Auburn, which was close to home. And he played behind two players that you might be familiar with. That would be Jared Harper and Bryce Brown. Jared Harper's on a two-way contract for the Knicks. Bryce Harper plays for the Westchester Knicks. So during his freshman year, Davion Mitchell was coming off the bench behind those two. And heading into his sophomore year, he felt he couldn't become the best version of himself at Auburn, so he decided to transfer. He had to sit out the 18-19 season, and then, he was able to finally play for Baylor. And as you can see with the way he's been able to develop from being a backup to Jared Harper and Bryce Brown to now potentially being a top 10 pick, I would say that was the best move for him. Now, this championship season with Baylor, he averaged 14 points per game, 5.5 assists. He shot 51% from the field, and he also shot 45% from three. So those are phenomenal numbers, especially from a guard that helped lead a team to an NCAA championship. Now we're going to look at some of the pros for Davion Mitchell. So when looking at Davion Mitchell, one of the things that I really like is he has a quick first step, and he has the ability to blow by his defenders. When you're looking at Tom Thibodeau and the kind of point guard that Tom Thibodeau wants, that checks off one major box. We all know Tom Thibodeau wants his point guard to get into the paint, penetrate, and then when the defense adjusts or collapses, to find shooters, whether that be in the corner or at the three-point line elsewhere. So one box checked when it comes to Davion Mitchell's fit with the New York Knicks. Once he's able to get past his defender and get into the paint, he has the ability to absorb contact and finish around the rim. That's something that I think was lacking at the point guard position this season until we went out and acquired Derrick Rose. And once we acquired Derrick Rose, we kind of saw how our offense kind of hit another gear. We weren't the most, we weren't offensive juggernauts, but we definitely did hit a different gear once we acquired Derrick Rose. And what I'm seeing with Davion Mitchell, his ability to penetrate and his ability to finish around the rim, he can do, or he can fill similar roles that Derrick Rose did when he was here. Now also, he's a good passer and a good decision maker that can operate and pick and roll sets. I think that's another box that needs to be checked for point guards the Knicks should be considering. We need someone that makes smart, sound decisions and is not giving the ball away repeatedly. And also, when you look at this roster, we have Obi Toppin, we have Mitchell Robinson, two bigs that need a point guard to put the rock in their hands. And they're both two bigs that can finish at and above the rim. So if you can imagine or just picture Davion Mitchell running pick and rolls and throwing alley-oops to Obi, to Mitch. He can even operate in the pick and roll, pick and pop situations with Julius Randle. That's what I like about Davion Mitchell, at least what I'm seeing when I'm, reviewing his film. The fact that he can penetrate, finish, and also facilitate. Three boxes that's checked for a point guard in Tom Thibodeau's system. Another box that we can check off, at least for this season, what he showed last season, he can knock down the three both off the dribble and in catch and shoot situations. Like I said, that's another box that needs to be checked. He's at this point checking every single box that we need when it comes to a point guard in Thibodeau's offensive scheme. We had Derrick Rose, like I said earlier in this video, and he shot 41% or 42% if I'm not mistaken. And that's right around where Davion Mitchell shot his three-point percentage. Of course, that three-point line is a lot closer than it is in the NBA. But from what I've seen, I think he can still develop, or not develop, but I think he can still knock down the NBA three pretty consistently. We talked about what he can give offensively, but I think defensively is really where Davion Mitchell shines. He's a great defender that can move laterally. He can stay in front of the ball handler. He's good at getting picks, getting steals. He's also pretty good when it comes to his defensive IQ and kind of understanding where the ball is going, so he can help out a lot on help defense and get a lot of strips that way. So every bullet point that I'm touching on when it comes to his pros are all things Tom Thibodeau must be licking his chops at when he's looking at potential players that'll fit in his system. So I like a lot of what Davion Mitchell could provide for this team. But as always with a lot of these prospects, there's reasons why he's not a top 2 or a top 3 pick. And there are some cons when it comes to Davion Mitchell. So when looking at Davion Mitchell, yes, I said that he can knock down the 3, but I'm a little bit cautious, or I want to see a little bit more from him before I can just go out there and say that he's a bona fide three-point shooter. That three-point percentage is a small sample size, because if you look at his previous seasons, he was shooting down in the low 30s from 3. Not only that, this was a unique college season where there weren't too many fans, and I don't think there were any fans in attendance for most of the games. And if you look at the NBA, you've seen a few players who performed this year, and they definitely had a drop off from their performance in the bubble. So that's one thing I'd be cautious about. Also, his free throw percentage for his career in college was 65%. That's extremely concerning for a point guard. If you're looking at the NBA now, you know, Ben Simmons, a point guard that can't really knock down free throws, the Hawks have been, you know, hack a Ben, kind of throwing off the 76ers flow offensively. So, and another thing when it comes to his poor free throw percentage, a lot of scouts say free throw percentage is a big indicator of how good a player's three-point shooting will develop. Now, if he's still shooting poorly from free throw, that kind of makes me wonder, was that bump in three-point percentage just attributed, or something that you can attribute to that different environment in college where there's no fans, players, their focus isn't being taken off the game because they have to worry about the atmosphere that they're playing in. So two things I'm concerned right there: three-point percentage being, you know, a little fluky potentially, and also his free throw percentage. With Davion Mitchell, he's also a poor rebounder with below average leaping ability. So Davion Mitchell, he is good finishing around the rim, but because he doesn't jump out the gym, he's really not going to play above the rim. So that may be an issue when it comes to attacking taller defenders like a Rudy Gobert, Clint Capella, players like that. So that's another thing to watch out with. And when it comes to Davion Mitchell, he's not a one and done. He's a player that technically spent 4 years in college, even though he only played 3 seasons. But he's an older prospect. He'll be 23 by the time the season starts. So you have to take that into account as well. Is this as good as Davion Mitchell will be? You know, if you look, or if you read around, a lot of scouts are wondering, is he going to be a high floor, low ceiling prospect? That means he's going to come in, he's not going to get much better, but at least he doesn't have that big bust threat, or that big bust risk factor. Because, you know, as he's coming into the NBA, he's a pretty sound player as is. He just has to work on some of these areas. And I think if he's able to show us that his three-point percentage in college was not a fluke, if he's able to increase his free throw percentage to something more reasonable, let's say 75, 80% from the free throw line, if he's able to do things like that, he'll be a solid prospect, and he'll be a legitimate starting point guard in this league. So I think the Knicks should try to go out and move up and acquire Davion Mitchell if they have the draft capital to do so. And also, I don't want them to kind of overextend themselves in order to get a deal done. If it's a reasonable deal and they want to move up and make that selection of Mitchell and slot him in as our potential point guard of the future, I'd be fine with that. Because if you think about the Knicks, we're not going to go out there, I don't think at least, we're not going to go out there and make 4 draft selections this season. I think we're going to either make a major move to bring in some more talent via trade, or we're going to trade up and we're going to draft a stud, either top 10, or if we get lucky and find someone in maybe 12, 13, I think that's the route the Knicks would go. But once again, if you like this video, smash the like button and let me know your comments down below. Once again, I'm Keith, host of Sports Vibes TV, and I'm out.